For some more analysis on these latest developments, France 24 International Affairs editor Kethevane Gorjestani joins me here in the studio. Kethevane, let's talk about these updated charges for this alleged election interference. How does that work?
Well, basically, what Jack Smith, the special prosecutor, did was take into account, as you said, that ruling by the Supreme Court that gave broad immunity to a former president from criminal prosecution for official acts, his acts as president. So this new or revised indictment is 36 pages long. That's 9 shorter than the original one. Same 4 charges, including, for example, the conspiracy to obstruct a official proceeding, which is the certification of the election on January 6th. And the focus is on Donald Trump's role and actions as a political candidate rather than as a sitting president at the time. And there's a line in that new indictment: the defendant had no official responsibilities related to the certification proceedings, but he did have a personal interest as a candidate in being named the winner of the election. So what does that mean, really? How did they remove 9 pages in that indictment? There are no longer any references to Trump's attempts or alleged attempts to pressure the Department of Justice to do his bidding in overturning that election result. They're focusing on key testimony from witnesses outside the federal government, basically no ties to the White House or to the federal government. For example, Rudy Giuliani, he was the personal attorney, so he is still fair game. There's one big question now. It's Mike Pence, the vice president, because, of course, some of their relationship is official between president and vice president. But when he was certifying the results of the election, he was certifying it as the president of the Senate, presiding over the Senate, which is one of the roles of the vice president. And so Jack Smith is arguing that in that case, he was not acting as vice president, he was acting as the head of the Senate. So maybe that will fall under it. The thing is, highly unlikely that this will go to trial before November 5th. And it's very hard to tell whether this is going to have any impact on the election. On the one hand, Donald Trump has already tweeted and posted about it, fundraised about it, calling it, again, a witch hunt and motivating his base. At the same time, it's also bringing back January 6th into the spotlight and reminding some people who might be on the fence about what exactly Donald Trump was doing on January 6th. And so that could sway potentially voters away from Donald Trump, but it's very hard to tell which way that will go.
A few angles on the legal and the media angle there. Well, meanwhile, speaking of media, Kamala Harris and Tim Walz, the Democratic ticket now, they seem to have stolen a good bit of Trump's thunder in recent weeks. They're set to give their first joint interview with CNN tomorrow. Why is it such a big deal? What are they hoping to accomplish?
Well, it's a big deal because basically Kamala Harris hasn't given a press conference or sat down for a real interview since Joe Biden's disastrous debate performance. So that goes back to the end of June. And that interview was basically her defending Joe Biden, not really talking about what would happen next, which is the fact that Joe Biden has dropped out of the race and she is now the nominee for the Democratic Party. And what initially was really focused of as a Republican attack against Kamala Harris, saying she's incompetent, that's why she's not sitting down for interviews, she's not taking the hard questions, has gradually over time become criticism even within Democratic ranks, with Democrats saying she needs to get out there, she needs to respond to reporters because it's been more than a month since she's been the nominee. And so the idea is, yes, at some point there was a political calculus, risk, reward. They felt that they were riding a wave of momentum, of enthusiasm. They didn't want to break that wave. That's totally politically sound. But they might have waited a little bit too long to get her on that interview, because now everybody is going to be watching that interview as much for what she says about her policies. There are questions about things that she said when she was running for a president 4 years ago versus what she's doing now, whether she's going to continue the economic policies of Joe Biden, all of these things. But it's also going to be important to see how she says those things, because the idea and what the Republicans have pounced on is that she's not really great in unscripted situations. And of course, now videos are coming back up of her pretty disastrous interview back in 2021 about the border situation, why she wasn't going to the border, where she was very defensive, very aggressive, responding that she hadn't even gone to Europe either, and so she didn't understand the questioning. So she is going to have to prove that she is competent, that she can do an interview. The question is, will that be enough? Because there are already questions about why is she not doing it by herself? And why does she need her vice presidential candidate partner, Tim Walz, with her? Why is she doing it just before Labor Day weekend, which is a holiday weekend for Americans? And of course, that will be a Republican attack, which is she's doing it with CNN. And they say that CNN is too friendly, and so she's not really taking the tough question.
Indeed. All right. Well, we will see how she performs, as well as VP candidate Tim Walz during that interview. France 24 International Affairs editor Kethevane Gorjestani, thanks so much for that analysis.